Thanks for jumping in for the ride and welcome to the channel. In this video I wanted to hit on a few highlights of installing some Bilstein 5100 shocks on a 2016 Ford F150. As you can see from the photos, the jacking location is going to be at the lower front area of the frame, making it secure. Once the vehicle is established up on jack stands and safe to go to work, the first step in the process is disconnect the tie rod end. A couple of light taps with a hammer should get this accomplished fairly easily. The ABS control wiring and the vacuum line will be attached to the steering knuckle with 3 small bolts and 3 plastic push clips. The best thing that I found to remove the push clips is a plastic interior panel removing tool. Quick tip: although I personally left the brake caliper attached, you may want to remove it to make access a little easier. Next, loosen the upper ball joint nut, but be sure to leave a few threads on the nut and the ball joint still connected. This will ensure that the strut assembly and the lower A-arm doesn't fall and cause any damages to any components. Once the ball joint nut is loose, you can loosen the 2 nuts on the A-arm. This will ensure that the A-arm will swing up out of the way and give you room to work once you're ready to remove the assembly. Once the upper ball joint and A-arm nuts are loose, you can begin removing the nuts at the lower area of the strut assembly on the lower A-arm. Now be sure to remove the dust cap and the nut that holds the spindle into the hub assembly. Now a couple of solid strikes with a hammer should remove the upper ball joint from the steering knuckle assembly. Just be patient and pay attention. Once the steering knuckle and the ball joint assembly are detached, you can go ahead and remove the ball joint nut. You can see here that I've gone ahead and placed the floor jack underneath the lower A-arm. This will keep everything up in place until you're ready to lower it and remove the strut assembly. Now remove the 3 nuts at the top of the strut assembly that attach it to the upper suspension mount. These 3 nuts can also be removed from underneath the hood with a socket and extension. Now disconnect the sway bar end links and the lower A-arm will hang freely and the assembly will be ready for removal. Using a pry bar on the bottom side of the strut assembly between the strut and the lower A-arm, we can now remove the assembly. Quick tech tip: the bottom side of the strut assembly came out easy on the passenger side, but the top actually came out much easier on the driver's side. Now using a spring compressor, compress the spring until there's just tension off of the upper and lower perch. This should allow you to release the middle nut that's on the center of the strut assembly, releasing the strut from the center of the spring. With the top perch and the spring removed, you can now take a hammer and just tap the lower perch off of it. It'll take a couple of taps working your way around, but it will come loose fairly easy. If you're performing all 4 shocks and struts on the vehicle in the driveway, I would plan on it the biggest part of a day. Obviously this will be much faster and much more efficient with a friend to help out. The dust boots are reusable on the Bilstein 5100 series shocks. The dust boots appear to be prone to cracking, so field expedient repair with silicone is what I used. The factory 4 strut utilizes a 19mm nut. The Bilstein 5100 utilizes a 20mm nut and includes 1 single poly bag with a washer inside that says installation kit. Quick tech tip: make sure you use the installation kit, which is basically a washer. This takes up the gap at the top of the strut. New sway bar end links are literally 2 more nuts, so while I was doing the job I went ahead and swapped them out. Now that you've made it this far, installation is just the opposite of the disassembly. Just to cover as much information as possible, the rear shocks are literally 2 bolts and take about a 20-minute install. I really hope this helps with your installation. If it has, please hit that subscribe button and thumbs up.